In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Frye, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Nathan Lutz, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome, all you lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, where we watch movies, then talk about them. I'm your host, Dustin Melbardis, and tonight I'm joined with my good friend and co-host, Bryan Frye. Bryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's about 80 degrees in my attic today because I was not smart enough to turn the air conditioning on up here before we started. So, yeah, it's warm.
You live in a place where you can forget to turn the air conditioning on and survive.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Although I will say it was 104 today, so it was not the best day to forget to turn the AC.
I'm actually going to be up in your neck of the woods next weekend, flying into Seattle and going to Cle Elum, just near Ellensburg. I'm going to be attending my sister's wedding, so I'll be up there. She told me that you guys are having your hot week and that it'll be over by the time I'm there.
Cle Elum should be wonderful if you get the opportunity. Take I think it's like a 15-20 minute drive to Leavenworth.
It's longer than that, but I love Leavenworth.
Oh my God. It's one of my wife and I's favorite places to just, if you ever need to F off town and, clear your head. That's
free
Leavenworth.
Plug for the city of Leavenworth, the town that is not German by design, but decided 40 years ago, how do we get more people to visit? Let's just say we're a German town and make all the signs wooden and kind of look German, and it's worked.
It was super ninja too. I guess their primary was mining or something, and that bottomed out. And they were like, we don't want our town to die, so we're going to be a destination for people who want an authentic German experience. So literally the whole town just agreed to go German.
Right. Like the McDonald's has sign is German, man, Bavarian letters. Yeah.
And we usually go over for Oktoberfest, which is awesome. And if you're in the California area and you're listening to us, it's a lot like Solvang. So there are other instances of this around the U.S., but Leavenworth is...
Well, Bryan, tonight we're lucky to have my good friend Jake Pierce back on the show. Say hi, Jake.
Hey, how's it going, y'all?
Jake was actually a guest on our episode last year covering Apocalypse Now, which has gone on to become our most listened to episode. So let's keep the train rolling.
Yeah, man, where my Pockies at?
Where the Pockies
Where my Pockies at?
I doubt I had anything to do with that. It's a good movie.
Well, half the battle's picking a good movie. But before we get to the movie for tonight, let's start with some warm-up questions. We'll start with our guest, Jake. If you could add one thing to the movie theater experience, what would it be?
Maybe just a personal complaint. They don't need to be 60 degrees inside the movie theater. But I guess what are they doing at the IMAXs that are different? They got the shaking seats and stuff like that.
We're looking at wraparound screens, giant screens, to where you do have to kind of move your head and your eyes to see stuff. And the sound of IMAX is supposed to be very, very good. I think it's Dolby, somewhere in the future, Dolby. I don't know for sure. But other people have done that. But I think your first thing
3D
is
goggles in one of those isolation tanks, those float tanks. Just that's the way to do it. I want to watch The Matrix that way.
I'm not saying you're not answering the question, but I think our best solution here is let's just take you a little movie screen into an isolation pod.
Yeah,
that's fun. Bryan, what would you add to the movie theater experience? You can choose climate control.
No, actually, I love 60-degree movie theaters. I'm the guy that rolls into the 60-degree movie theater in the short shorts and sandals, and I'm like, oh, it's my natural environment. It literally is. It is my homeostasis.
Me and you are cut from the same iceberg, man.
My wife is she's got sweatpants, 2 pairs of socks, shoes, hoodie. Coat,
did she bring a blanket?
I'm sitting there. I'm like,
yeah, nice little reprieve.
But no, I actually want to piggyback on the IMAX thing. You know how they make? I mean, I don't want to go so far as to say it needs to be the kind of harnesses that they use for inverted roller coasters, but I do think that they need to change it so instead of a movie theater experience, I understand that the people can't see this, but instead of going with like a fairly steep sloping chair experience, like let's back it all the way up, man. Let's have it as like a screen on screen. Like everybody is the same distance away. Like there aren't good seats and bad seats. I think that's what needs to change. Cool. There shouldn't be good seats and bad seats. Everybody should be accommodated with a view that won't like give you a headache or a migraine or something afterwards.
Well, mine isn't as cool as yours. It's not a sexy option, but I think the same way that you can pay to not see ads on YouTube, the same way that the difference between your Hulu, it's like one price with ads, one price without. I would pay more to go see a movie without the previews.
Oh, blasphemy.
That is kind of a hot take. Yeah.
I like previews.
Oh,
I like previews. But I would pay more to not have to do it, to where I can get in and out and then go on to what the rest of my day is or was beforehand.
I will agree that ads, like, you know, when you get a movie, super advertising and stuff.
Yeah.
100% with you. But I got to tell you, there is a Russian roulette that happens when you go see a movie you're really looking forward to. There is a distinct possibility they're going to show you a preview of a movie that you'd rather see than what you're seeing.
That's true.
That affects
like plate envy.
Oh my God.
Ooh, I should have ordered that.
Yeah.
So I'm telling it, but I'm excited for stuff like that because I want to see that preview, because those are the previews that you only get to see in theater. They haven't been released yet or something like that. I'm ravenous for.
Well, I'm not. This is not me backing up off of this, but I'd like the choice because I like previews.
Yeah,
and I like that you get to see them
but
in
if
like
you're in
the
a
theater
hurry.
experience. But if I could make the theater experience like more custom to what my time frame is. It's funny that you just mentioned Force Awakens, where it's like, you have another showing of this? Yeah, I have 30 showings of it in the next hour.
We literally have, this is in 9 theaters. We've got 30, we've got 5 different screen shapes. You can pick one.
I just think having the choice would be cool. But that's like I said, it wasn't a sexy option.
What about this? Bring back intermissions. 10 minutes, well-placed intermission, right? I got to go to the bathroom, smoke
I like
a
this.
cigarette,
and
it's
something you could choose, though. Like, do you want the one with the intermission or do you want the one without?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, as long as the choice comes with it. Speaking of movies, what is the last movie that you saw? It doesn't have to be in a theater, Jake.
I saw The Gray Man on Netflix.
There we go.
I tell you what, I watched that too. Sounds nice. Make it twice.
Yeah.
The Gray Man.
Yeah.
Was it any good? I think the top billing was something that intrigued me. It's
fun.
It's fun. The last movie I saw I was lucky enough to introduce my roommate to The Ring, which we covered. And he was kind of blown away. And he was like, "Man, it'd be crazy if there was a sequel to this." There is. And he looked at me like, "Oh, what? We gotta watch it." I'm like, "We gotta watch it another night."
Yeah.
Right now, it's time to laugh. So we put on 40-Year-Old Virgin.
There you go.
Which I realized, like, it is not something I initially think of as a classic, but I think it's one that's like, people can quote it and people know it. You have the chest waxing scene where he yells Kelly Clarkson, right? Mm-hmm. I think that scene might be more well known than Kelly Clarkson's career nowadays. Like there are just little things that like stand out from that movie.
The one who boobs
can I ask a quick question?
Bag of sand, yeah, of course.
All right, so it completely like devastated me. I could not be on Matrix or The Ring. But can I tell you about the correlation between those two movies?
Totally.
Have you ever seen...
I have to let you know, I'm going to keep it in, and it is going to take away from our time talking about our movie tonight, which is okay. So,
eventually we'll get to the...
For as long as our movie is tonight, which is going to be Dirty Dozen, folks, like, for as long as this movie is, it's going to be a succinct discussion. This is a very, it's a very short, long movie. So, I don't think that I've ever seen a movie where all of the sequels were perpetually disappointing me the same way that Matrix did. Like, the first ones in both series, they affected me personally.
Yes.
And then every sequel was just like...
Well, it's because of that, Brian. It's because of that I generally... now, I was actually, like, counting down the months. I was so into the fandom that, like, it was necessary watching for me. But since that point, I have made the decision, I don't really watch sequels unless I have to for the podcast, or unless it's something that just stands out as something I need to watch. Even though we know for sure there is Ring 2 and Rings, I've never watched them. It's only because I'm
the best.
And well, I mean, I've got the roommate hype. This is something we can share for once, so we are going to watch it. But Bryan did say it. The movie we're covering tonight from 1967 is The Dirty Dozen, starring Lee Marvin, Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson, Jim Brown, John Cassavetes, Richard Jaeckel, George Kennedy, Trini López, Ralph Meeker, Robert Ryan, Telly Savalas, Clint Walker, and Robert Weber. The budget was $5.4 million, and it grossed $45 million domestically. It placed 6th in the box office that year. The movie that placed ahead of it was Bonnie and Clyde, and it beat out Valley of the Dolls. The number 1 movie that year was The Graduate. Check out our 13th episode ever to get a little discussion on that. On IMDb,
and
the
to hear
rating
me
is 7.7.
truly hate on something.
Yeah.
God, I hated The Graduate. Oh, if you're new to the show and you need a reason to not like personally, you like The Graduate, check out our Graduate episode.
Check out the Graduate episode. Also, welcome. Rotten Tomatoes score. Critics give it 81%. Audience scores it much higher, 90%. 90%, hard to see on a lot of movies. Now, we actually, we did win an Academy Award here for Best Sound Effects. We had 3 nominees, Best Supporting Actor, Best Film Editing, and Best Sound. That would be for John Cassavetes. And it did also get a Golden Globe nomination. Another list that this movie finds itself on is the AFI's Greatest Thrills list at number 65, which I gotta say, this is maybe, as far as lists go, and as far as categories go, one of the worst defined as far as thrills. This movie is 150 minutes long, so there's got to be a thrill in there somewhere. But as far as like greatest thrills, I always find that list to be the strangest. So we'll start with Jake, because Jake was the one that gave us the short list, including The Dirty Dozen. What was your sort of background with this movie?
It was a movie that we had on VHS when I was a kid. We didn't have cable or TV. We got, old movies from my grandparents. And it was a war movie, so it was something that we could watch with Dad, right? And I had 2 older brothers, so we were just watching war movies like this all the time. Longest Day, Sands of Iwo Jima, Dirty Dozen, Bridge over the River Kwai, things like that. And I just had fond memories of it.
It's something that, was part of your... It's hard to say that, war was part of my childhood, but when you are watching this stuff over and over, the same way that, MASH can do that. What about your background, Bryan? Have you seen it before?
Same deal. I spent a lot of time in Hardy County, West Virginia with my grandparents. And, this Gettysburg. I watched a lot of Civil War movies as a kid. So Gettysburg, Glory. The big thing that I think separates something like Dirty Dozen from something like Glory is they didn't really sugarcoat the violence as much. So, someone gets shot in this, they just, really, really terribly keel over and die.
I think we'll take a little bit of time to talk about that later.
But so, I don't know. I watched a ton of this, and I actually think this goes back to a discussion that Russell and I had during the time where he really couldn't grasp how I watch a movie like Black Hawk Down fun. And it's really just, I watch a lot of work. I've probably watched Band so many times the disc could melt.
Yeah. I think that it probably exists a population of people that say war movies can't be fun. They're supposed to be harrowing and traumatic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And hey, a lot of them are. But a lot of them are also very, very fun. And it could be that you are really interested in seeing tactics. It could be that you're really interested in seeing the interpersonal conflicts between our actors. Or it could just be this is something that is an ensemble cast put together for something special. Let's take a look, and that can still be very fun. This was, and I love it when this happens, this was my first time watching this movie.
Nice.
Of course, had heard about it, and I had seen it referenced as an inspiration for other types of movies, which cannot be refuted or denied. The seeds planted by this, and for the record, listeners at home, Bryan, you know this. This year, we have so many movies, one that are good, but 2 that are it was because of these movies that themes or certain styles became popular. And I would say the getting the team together for an impossible mission.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad, essentially.
Right.
And I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring it up, but it's almost like Inglourious Bastards, too. There's that.
Correct.
There's a lot of what reminds me there's a lot in this movie that reminds me of Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't come up with a list, but you can see that as you watch this movie, you can see that that's where that idea must have started. And
it's not even just film. I mean, you have Battlefield Bad Company in video games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what's the connection there? Battlefield Bad Company.
Bad Company is.
Oh, it's like a ragtag.
Yeah,
like group of,
I mean, it's literally
cool.
it was based on the whole thing. It's like you got these
Motley Crue.
Yeah, it's Motley Crue.
Well, let's take a quick advertisement break, and we're going to come back. If you haven't seen The Dirty Dozen, clear your schedule. It takes a while. But after we come back from our advertisement break, Bryan is going to give a short plot summary, and you are going to learn what happens in that movie. So come back after the break, and we'll talk about it then.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason, and this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments, too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
And we are back. And now it's time for a brief plot summary from Bryan. Take it away.
Major Reisman has a problem, so he is the perfect to hand 12 hard men who were found guilty of various crimes and send them all on a suicide mission to kill Nazis. The plan is for him to train these degenerate soldiers into an elite force to take out a French chateau full of Nazi leadership. Through cunning and subtlety, the Major wins the hearts and minds of the men through a variety of techniques and uses them to mess with and ultimately one-up his nemesis, Colonel Bree. Having proven themselves to their superiors, they embark on a mission that was to claim the lives of 11 of their number, sparing only the Major, Wenceslaw, and Sergeant Jaeckel.
Put all your eggs in one basket and then blow up the basket. That's kind of what we have here. To me, this would signal the beginning. It probably isn't. Somebody beforehand in a less popular movie, in a movie that's not in the American zeitgeist, had probably come up with the idea of put a crew together to accomplish a task. But the scale of this is pretty fun. Was there something about this style of movie, or let's just say it's a weekend at the Pierce household when you're a boy? Does this one stand out among some of the other war movies as being something special?
Incredibly violent. I forgot that they just, the ending, how they accomplish the mission. I don't want to spoil it right off the bat, but
this is what happens. We
they
can talk about
douse a bunch of Nazis and their wives in gasoline, and then drop dozens and dozens of grenades.
Wait, time out. Those are not wives.
That's a good point.
Those are
Maybe.
not wives. I think that there's
Bryan, to wives and sweethearts may they never meet.
There's a certain member of the Dirty Dozen who keyed in on that very early.
Oh, okay. So you think that Maggot was actually... I just kind of put Maggot up as some sort of psychopath that just had a vendetta against women and was using some crazy religious reasoning for it. I know that
off the table. That's not wrong. In so many words.
I'm about to go off on a tangent. I don't know if this is distracting, but the women that go to the men in that tent, or it's the 8 women that show up and they're dancing and whatnot, those are very clearly escorts, prostitutes, or whatever.
Right.
But I was thinking that these are German officers who just had their wives around. But maybe they could very well be prostitutes.
I would put $500 on that all of their wives are in Bavaria and Belgium and Germany, and they're in France, and these are all friends.
Yeah.
Wolfgang.
We do
Wolfgang. I mean, come on. I don't know, who all's been married or not, but way she rolled in there looking for Wolfgang. I don't get that welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's probably not specifically made played, especially considering that you are now 130 minutes into the movie, so where some details might not be. They weren't shown to me right away. It was completely plausible to think that these are the Nazi, the very high up Nazi officers, and whoever their companions are. But the plan goes awry, but it turns into a situation where everybody jumps into a bomb shelter, and
which was a very sheltering of the bombs.
Maybe for one big bomb, but not for for a bunch of
little ones.
So there was a bit of improvisation there from the major during this thing, but so it was one the violence as far as when you were younger. It's like, this is something like, whoa, this is kind of a big score. It's not just soldiers that are shooting.
The scene where they're trying to push the grenades out through the grate, but there's they're not going to be able to get them out, and they're just trying before they all just get exploded.
There's a panic to the idea that let's be fair, the wives or the escorts or whoever it is that's with these particular officers, they didn't sign up to be poking at grenades. But so that was kind of an impactful thing for when you first watched it. What about you, Bryan? From your time growing up, I would say that the thing that stood out on my first watching was this is a cool concept of death row, the condemned, to go do a suicide mission, which has become essentially a trope at this point.
Yeah.
But what was the thing when you were younger that you know what, The Dirty Dozen, this is what I'll remember from it?
I remember it being 2010 or something. I came back to this. I had seen it a bunch. And the fact that the girls in the tent were hookers did not apply to me the first...
Yeah.
To kids.
However many times I saw it. I think there was a truly unintentional, by fictional leadership plot point that was really, I don't want to say overlooked, maybe it was their intent, but can you imagine 12 other better people to trap and kill a whole bunch of military hierarchy? These people all hate officers.
That's the big,
you literally get 12 people who hate officers like it's their job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you send them to kill an entire chateau of Nazi officers. I mean, this is a dream job.
This is a dream.
So it's something that hit me later on where I was like, wow, I don't think you all you planned it as saying these guys are going to die anyway, or at least spend the rest of their lives in prison. Let's give them a shot at this and see what's up. They didn't take into account the galvanizing aspect of you're giving these men an opportunity to kill the hierarchy that they've wanted to kill their entire professional careers.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going against that point. It's a cool point. But I think there are some who are very much more clearly anti-authority than others. In fact, when you kind of
including the major.
Including the major. When you scale out of the 12 men selected, and we don't see any type of real vetting or voir dire. There's not a pool of 30 that he's choosing from. We get the 12. We have enough time, of course, to do so, but we get the 12 pretty early, and some of them are definitely more rebellious than others. So, some of them, I would say, the one that stands out right away is Posey, who creatively named Samson Posey, this giant of a man.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem to be as anti-authority as we'll say Franco would be.
Sure.
But would you say that with this opening sequence where it's pretty quick, the idea of what we're getting? I'm glad that we don't get a one-on-one vignette with the major and all 12 of them. Mm-hmm. I don't think we need it.
No.
Yeah.
They hit the main side characters, which was Maggot, Charles Bronson's character, Jefferson, and Franco. And you kind of find out that Franco, Jefferson, and Vladislav are all kind of redeemable. I can't remember what Vladislav done, but Franco had stolen $10 and was going to get hung for it. And then Jefferson beat up some racist hillbillies, right? So it's immediately you have some redeemable prisoners. I like that. But then in juxtaposition to that, you've got Maggot at the very end, who's spouting religious nonsense and acting like absolute sociopath. But I don't even think he's actually religious. I think he's just predator, and he uses religion to hide it.
I think one of the reasons this movie really holds, I don't want to say redeemable weight, but I feel like that's maybe the best way to say it, is you really do get pseudo quick character development.
Pretty quick. Well, especially considering you have to develop only a handful of characters.
But believable. Like, it gets believable character development quick.
Yeah.
Like, where it's not just this is a mechanism of this movie, but they do it in a non-ham way to where, like, the point where it's like, I think we had Reisman all wrong. Like, in the real world, sure, maybe things don't work out exactly that way. But I do think that, you talk about perfect man for a perfect job.
It's like choosing a whole bunch of oil drillers to go stop a meteor from crashing.
Come and get Papa Bear.
I think one of the cooler moments of character development, and one that made the most sense, is where they all refuse to shave, and then they all kind of step up as a team for the first time, and the Major has that, like, yes, I want them to hate me. I am the enemy right now, but they need something to focus on so they can work as a team, and then they go through this. We don't know how long they go unshaved, unbathed, but It's something they have to go through together as like a joint experience because they stood up for themselves.
Major Reisman says it while he's having some Johnny Walker with his bud. He goes, "Boy, do I love that Franco."
Yeah.
And to maybe to a young man or to a boy, you're thinking, like, why would he say that? That's weird. But when you look at the sort of psychological effect of what the purpose is try to bring these people together to work as a team to depend on each other.
Can we talk about how Reisman is a better psychologist than the psychologist?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, he knows what he's doing, totally.
He's a leader. He is a leader of men. He's done this before. He's experienced, and he's good at it.
I think and he's good at it. He knows that it is going to work. It just, there are some wild cards and some variables, but this should work. I think that his friend is Captain Kinder. Funny German name for the psychologist there. But yeah, he does a great job. I think we also have the moment where, now we don't have any sort of idea about how these 12 people interact with one another at all in their current imprisoned state after several court-martials. We don't know if they're friends at all. Like, there's no, like, longest yard aspect of this where it's like, oh, these guys are kind of getting along already.
Yeah.
It's just, this truly could have been anything from they've already kind of lived in the same cell block and had exercise time together for the last 2 years, 10 years, or it could be they've never met. Because there's not really any time devoted to that, and that's okay because we get, all right, we've selected you, and now you're going to build this compound together, and through it, that's how we'll sort of build some team. I think the first teamwork aspect about the mission, about what's being granted by Project Amnesty, is what this whole thing is called. Because I think the movie does pay enough attention to chain of command, and this is the way things work with authority.
Yeah.
Even the generals are like, hey, this was handed down to me.
Yeah.
Is that there are rules to this game. The rules are, anybody tries to cut and run, and you're all going to get hung. Or I'm going to personally beat your brains out.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure exactly fit with the Major's character. Did you think he needed the violent side?
I think Lee Marvin has really cultivated a image of himself over most of his filmography. So I do think that that's targeted. Like, it's that smooth criminal. Like, he doesn't even back down when it comes to a room of men who could take him out and shoot him right there.
Rough and tumble. He does sort of thwart the attack of Franco early in the yard. He also is inviting each of the 12 to stab him
yes.
with the knife. And
and I love that. It's like, just so you guys know, I could kick any one of your asses.
Yeah.
Well, it is
like,
just so we were talking about, is it necessary? Is this important for his character? These are prisoners. This is his picking the biggest guy, Samson Posey, giving him a knife, and then taking the knife.
It's prison rules.
It's the prison
rules. Yeah.
Yep. Now,
he's like, I'm going to kick this guy's butt in front of all of you, so you know what's up. Like, that's awesome.
And maybe the Major was smart enough to have a fake knife that would retract into the hilt. And maybe we never got to see that because he was so good. But, maybe that's what he was doing.
Right. there could have been a fallback. But when you're watching it for the first time,
There's no, yeah.
and that's kind of
That's me giving it the benefit, I think.
It is. It's also just sort of like, you don't know these characters that well yet.
Yeah.
When I was watching this movie and I was thinking about the characters, man, you mentioned it, Bryan, with like Band of Brothers. Like, wouldn't you kind of like to see this group before this mission, right? Let's just say you have 3 episodes of a 10-episode arc show. 3 of them are like getting the group together, and then let's see a couple missions happen. Like, you kind of want to get to see the specialties or the... Because I think you get enough of the personalities, but I'd like to see them do more.
Well, I was going to say that, like, Band of Brothers was one of those really, it was above all else. I mean, Tom Hanks has always done World War II, whether it's Grey or Saving Private Ryan, whether he's in it. One of the things about Band of Brothers, that a cohesive story is their time in boot camp with David Schwimmer's character, basically constantly drilling him. Yeah, man, just messing with him. And you got to have that. So you get that thing from the major where he's like, I'm going to drive you all nuts, because you do need a central person to, corral around for hate. But then that's where the olive branch comes out. It's like, okay, what David Schwimmer never did in Band of Brothers is, okay, you all hate me. You all hate thoroughly. I've given you focal point of hatred.
Yeah.
Here is 3 bottles of Johnny Walker and a bunch of hookers.
Yeah.
I did it for a purpose.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, ha 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 ha, you sandbagging son of a bitch. Like,
you old salty sailor, you.
This guy. So, like, that's this guy.
Is that the best part of this movie? Is our training? Is getting to see the group grow up together?
Isn't everything the gearing up moment?
Most of it. Yeah.
Like the commando, like, I've got bandoliers of ammo and I'm loading magazines and chambering around 6 times, even though nothing's flying out the other end. Like,
right.
Isn't that the excitement?
You can pump that shotgun an infinite amount of times.
Well, gotta make sure the slide's greased, Rack it a few
man.
times.
The number of times you see someone chamber around after they've already chambered around, you're like, you're losing ammo, champ.
I didn't pay too much attention to that sort of stuff with this movie. It just gets a pass for me on stuff like that, because I think this movie's made in the 60s. It'll be fine,
There's a lot of passing that's going to happen for this. So.
Yeah.
I think it deserves the passes that it gets. Maybe that's the wrong way of putting it, because I'm not going to take anything away from this movie for using stock footage of parachuters.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's actually a very... I actually prefer that. I mean, you can go up through Top Gun and this is a well-honored tradition for militaries to use stock footage.
Yeah.
That's not a knock at all.
Top Gun, another example of how it's the training for war that is fun.
Yeah.
When you think of Top Gun, and I'm not thinking of the our new one, but when you think of Top Gun, you're thinking about the schooling. You're thinking about the training they go through. I mean, I know that it ends with an actual wartime encounter, or I guess it's over international waters, perhaps, but that's not what you remember about that movie. And I think with this movie, what do you think? Does the actual mission that they're training for that actually brings this thing together? Like what do you take away from? All right, it's actually go time.
I think by the time you get there, you're 2 hours into the movie, and you almost forget that there is a mission going on especially during the war games. But then it does a pretty good job of transitioning. And this is my favorite scene in the movie, is when they're having that last dinner with Jesus at that table, looking at the map, and he's going 1, and they all say the ditty.
That's right.
2, they all say the ditty, and they just do it over and over, and then it goes to the next scene, and they're in the plane, and now he's not doing them in order. He's bouncing around, and they're just robotically saying it over and over.
7, you throw the hook into heaven.
You gotta have the final scene, because the training montage is nothing without it. Because if it just ends training montage, then it's what was all this for? But maybe they could have expanded on that final battle scene and shortened. They could have shortened a lot of things.
Fair.
I actually, so my dissent on this is, how many war movies have you actually watched where it shows the actual preparation, like the necessary preparation to go into these events?
True,
Like,
but I think the necessary preparation is oftentimes like,
You see
all
it more
right,
in
do we
heist
have
movies.
enough? Yeah, this is, I don't know.
there was a lot. The reason I'm bringing this up is there's a line in Band of Brothers that I always really...
I shouldn't have said it because we're going to add 20 minutes to the show.
Oh, I can talk about Band of Brothers. I love. It's one of my favorite pieces of art, just art in general. Oh,
You've
yeah.
gotta memorize this stuff to be effective in the field. And one of the things that I thought was unsung about Band of Brothers is, like, you had NCOs that were excellent job. They landed on a train track heading a certain direction. He knew exactly what the line was, where they're going. Like, that's the training that, you know, has to...
I'm picking up what you're laying down, is that the preparation, and we get to see the repetition, memorization, along with improvisation, because what do we get right away? We get Jimenez gets himself hung up in an apple tree. Right away. And we had actually seen this in the training. Like, I think his they call him mayonnaise. Is that, I don't know where that joke comes from, but mayonnaise, hey, you got to climb that rope. Hey, make that rope taut. And then he, with a submachine gun, he blasts, he fires 10 rounds.
Where the other instructors are just downrange on top of the podium. He's shooting the rope, and they're just all up there. I was just like, oh, gosh.
He's very accurate with that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I believe it is Franco who says, wait, why do I have to climb it? Isn't mayonnaise going to be the one who climbs it? Like, no, we all need to know how to do it. And it immediately becomes part of the... We'll call it success of the mission. I love that at the mission beginning, we do see, aside from Jimenez's immediate demise, we see that taking out the guards, that another car comes through with 4 more. It's 4 silent kills from Vladislav. Like, we see things that going pretty well. Young Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, you don't expect him. And then him playing an idiot.
Yeah, kind of.
He actually plays an idiot.
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting it, right? He's just like, oh, hey, I recognize you. And then you're just like kind of doesn't really say a whole lot, just kind of acts dumb the entire time.
He's got a bit of a rubber face.
The best comedic moment of the movie is him pretending to be the general as he walks down the line. He's like, I think I've seen enough, Major.
He asked that one guy where he's from, like, you know,
Never
Missouri
heard of
City.
It. Yeah, Madison City.
Madison City, that's right.
Madison City, Missouri. Never heard of it.
We get a lot of things that kind of like are... The movie is more comedic than I thought.
Yeah.
It was going. Which was nice. I feel as if the intention for American audiences 55 years ago was, it needs to be more well-rounded and a little lighthearted. I'll say adding to the lightheartedness, aside from the comedy, is some of the score. You have some scenes where, speaking of Donald Sutherland, like, he can't hammer very well.
No.
Right? So you see him missing the nail a bunch of times. But, like, I felt like I was in an animated comic strip of Beetle Bailey sometimes.
Yeah.
But then you do get to, all right, now it's time to get serious. So I think they balance it out a little bit. But speaking of balance, I do love when we get to our mission, right? I do love when we get there. But it is right before that I would be lying if I said I didn't zone out a little bit. We know that the Major has a rival who outranks him, Colonel Breed. This is something that, I'm just going to say it out loud, I don't know if the movie needed. What do y'all think about these sort of 2 stories within the scope of this movie?
You can't be right unless you have someone who's wrong. So when they interview him, we don't want you for the job, Major. People don't like you. You have to have somebody spearheaded. You have to have someone above him in the rankings who is not on board with him being the guy accessible. And it's got to be someone who's fairly emasculated by him too, because I think to some degree Breed knows he's a better officer. That's where that piece comes in, where it's like, okay, you're my nemesis. I love that you aren't worth the uniform we put kind of piece that Major Reisman has for...
He's sort of the David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all have seen Band of Brothers.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that whole scene where there's like the dumb like blank measuring contest, right? Where they're like, the major's there on a general's orders, but the general doesn't want him talking about it or his name to be associated with it. So he's got to go to the colonel's base, and the colonel knows the major, doesn't like him, and knows he's up to something. So it's like this weird, pissing contest between the two of them that, yeah, I think, frankly, we could have gone without. I think you still have the war game, but when the Colonel Breed shows up with like 30 dudes, and then like the major jumps on top of a roof and just starts shooting randomly.
He's very accurate with that.
I think we could have done with less of the major holding a grease gun, shooting wildly into the air. And because those were the most unbelievable parts. And then it's like all of those guys were armed that he's shooting at, all like 30 of them. And he just goes, "Get them, boys." And they all like knee him in the stomach.
Without going too much into my superlatives, yes, all of that. Like
they could have been gone.
Well, there's also something really fun about that, especially about the sort of get 'em boys situation, is when the MP, the guy that's kind of the friend, Richard Jaeckel plays Borin or Bowers, but he's there when they're getting recruited. He's there during the mission. Surprise!
It doesn't make sense that the MP who was working at the jail is like, these are my boys. I'm going with them.
But I tell you what, I like that. I liked it too.
I like
one of the pieces where I'm like, dude, this guy was invested enough. He goes on
team building beyond the team.
It makes no sense, but I'm okay with it because it's fun.
It's fine that it makes no sense. I like that. But all I was getting at was during that sort of get 'em boys moment, and it happens throughout the rest of the movie. Once this turn happens, was like Borin like starts smiling. Like, oh, okay, they're getting it. And it's definitely the like. The school teacher kind of looking at her second graders like, oh, these knuckleheads. What am I going to do about you? But it's like, oh, well, we're going to go to war and kill a bunch of Nazis. But they really do all warm on each other. And, you did mention superlatives, and we're going to get to that pretty soon, actually. But I did want to say about the dialogue. It comes very chummy between everybody. It is maybe... if it weren't so long, a great team building exercise training video. Look how you can get people to work together, manipulatively or not, from the brass down. But I thought the dialogue stood out in this movie a lot. It's like things that like Vladislav, Charles Bronson's character, when they're doing the word association.
He's just mentioning baseball,
and then cities. It's like
Chicago,
like
Cincinnati.
You have the emotional range of a teaspoon, sir.
He didn't. I think he like got some sort of weird deal and just did not want to act for this film because he barely says anything. And he's like, I think in the in the 60s, he's like a star, right?
Oh yeah.
A big 100%. Star who had to turn down the spaghetti westerns to do this movie.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, he just phones it in. He just barely says anything. And then, I don't know. It was fun, though.
Like, if I were to say happiness, you might say children. I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I mean, what if I were to say ambition? I wouldn't say anything.
Chicago.
Cincinnati. Like that's another like little space where there's humor, but it's also like the dialogue between these guys.
Did he have any good lines? Any little one-liners from him? There was one, and I forgot what it was. I think.
All right, so without
he's important for translating in German later, but none of those lines are spectacular. Are you thinking of one, Brian? I
feel like his silence had more import to the movie than his talk.
It's like jazz. It's the lines you don't say.
So I just felt like how quiet he was, how circumspect he was about certain things, especially with Franco. I felt like he was more important as a silent non-speaker and just being present than
silence can be dangerous too.
Exactly. I mean, he was a man who not to be effed with.
Well, hey, he does silent and broody very well.
Yes.
If there was one actor to do it, it should be him.
maybe this is a grand compliment to give, but I think you have just enough of screen time of the actors that matter to this movie that you would need. You could shuffle some time around to the stories.
Less breed, I think.
You can have a little less breed, but like I think with what you get, and the most fun part for me is our training. It's the team building. Like these guys are really kind of picking up what each other are laying down. The first instance you get of this is you have sort of what's expected, which is that Franco is going to try to break out. You see him steal the wire cutters or the tin snips, whatever those are. Yeah. And then he goes to escape, and it is Jefferson. For the record, it's very hard for me to call him anything other than Jim Brown. But Jefferson, and who else stops him?
Charles Bronson.
Okay, so
Joseph
Vladislav and Jefferson stop him, and then sort of a different kind of silent good guy, Samson Posey, who Rambo is totally based on. Samson Posey is like kind of there as muscle too, and you actually then learn that the Major was actually there the whole time. So like they get the idea that we all must do this together if we have any chance of getting what was promised to us, which in reality doesn't happen for any of them.
Yeah, I think some people would have been much better off doing the 30 years hard labor, 20 years hard labor. I think one guy was just 20 years prison.
One guy was just 20 years prison, yeah.
And I think if I'm that guy, I go, I'm chilling. I
think I'm okay.
But here's the thing, like I think going back to what we kind of talked about in terms of naming rights, it's a Band of Brothers piece. Mm-hmm. Like once you are part of that collect, is what Terry wants to enrich and impart on his fight and die along next to, like when the dude's foot goes through the ceiling, he's chucking grenades like 10 feet away from himself.
Yeah, he dies
to knock out.
Right?
He
100% dies
up on the roof.
To one of those grenades, got to be, right?
Yeah, I think that's what's implied.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where like these guys are from all different walks of the military, brought together by their mal past, and based on the Major's tutelage and frankly crazy psycho
training.
This is how I'm gonna make you guys like each other.
Yeah,
or at least if it's not like each other, at least
hate
willing
me
to
together.
Stand up. So, but he basically pulls them back into the military's circumspect piece where they say, live and die next to your brother. Mm-hmm. So you have a guy who doesn't like higher-ups. He commiserates with these men who have been given to, but yet he still gets them back around to the military's view of thinking on live and die for each other.
Sometimes the word manipulation has only a negative connotation. I don't think that's exactly true.
I agree with you. I agree. Like it's beautiful. There's a specific picture. This being correct is a tenor.
Yeah,
and I think that's what gives this movie its.
And it's okay that it did not, even with all the preparation, even the mission did not go as planned.
No.
And in the end, I will say that there was a moment where I truly like a comedic jaw drop. Like I was with bated breath. Oh my gosh, is the whole thing going to? Is the whole thing going to blow up, so to speak, before we even get a chance to see the mission? And some of that was was directorial choice. I think the idea of when they're outside of this chateau, lovely by the way. The decision to completely cut the score when they're being sneaky was I was like holding my breath when whoever that one was, obviously it wasn't Jimenez, but it was either Gilpin or Lever. And it takes him 3 tries.
Yeah, and they do it slowly. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the tensest moments is him trying to get that thing. The guard walks by. You're just like, crap.
Wasn't it kind of funny that the very first mistake that's made is from the Major? The Major says to Vladislav, I left the rope.
Yep.
Thinking that guard might see it.
Mm-hmm.
Something else about that, which was just sort of had to be a decision, was after Pinkley gets shot down by the guard. He takes out 2, but then the third one gets him. And he does I call this like theatrical stage dying. Is that fair? Oh, Bryan just did it on video.
I'm sorry. The stage dying
Clutch
is
the heart.
Gosh.
That's what these people are doing, because I mean that's still it's a big deal. You cut your chops doing King Arthur. So like there's a lot of stage dying in this. Even we have very quick knockouts of some of the German guards too.
Yeah.
But the decision from our director here to show that when they pass Donald Sutherland's dead character, how each of them they look over to him, and it's a moment.
The guard does, the major does, there's somebody else, I think Vladislav does, or maybe Jefferson. But yeah, they all notice him and like take a moment. Because, yeah, he's the lovable idiot of the group, and he's one of the first ones to die that they can see.
When you have the three clearly main characters, okay? And you're just like, all right, there were 12 guys on a boat. Like, you could have like given a token pass to like 5 or 6 other guys to make this it was a suicide mission and blank number survived. It didn't have to be everybody but your literally highest paid actors. Like, I feel like it's something that it's a realization that happened too late in film.
I agree with you here.
Like,
and
why?
I think that,
like why not give a token live to 2 or 3 other guys? You could take the least screen time guy and give him a live, and people are like, I didn't think that would happen, and that's beneficial.
Yeah, I think what is important about that too is the getting outside of the chateau. Once the 2 of them that are meant to be inside get out, you have 6 of them die like as they're trying to leave.
With all of a sudden German from the bush. A lot of them where it's just like
nowhere.
Sudden German. They've been winning this battle for like the last 20 minutes.
Right.
Everything's kind of going right. And then like reinforcements kind of show up. They push them back. But then it's suddenly, German. Oh, they're snipers now.
And it's always like a cluster of 3, dude in the bell tower, and I'm like, what was that guy just high the whole time? And just now
he wasn't paying attention. He was looking the other way or something.
Yeah.
If you're going to cast Jim Brown, perhaps some would say the greatest running back in the history of the NFL, and certainly the greatest lacrosse player of all time.
20 seconds.
If you're going to have him do a feature where he runs, have him make it, y'all.
Yeah. Not some random German across the river shooting underneath the bridge. Then also the way Franco dies when he goes, "We made it," and it's like, come on, it's like it's too on the nose. If there's one sin this movie had, it's that one for me. Or
it's
just
the scream. I'll be right back. It's the guys. We did it. Pow. I agree that we needed more of these guys to get out. I'm thinking that been an issue with like, well, this is based on it's not 12, but it's 13. What is it? The Filthy 13, right? That was a real. And there was the book that released 2 years earlier than this that it's based on. But what I'm thinking about is, was it somehow some type of importance to the homage that if not many people survived, or if not many people, like, I'm also thinking about, our audiences ready for anti-heroes yet, or the idea of redeeming criminals in the 60s. But, would it have been too much to have 7 survive?
In today's cinema, it's important because if you have 5 or 6 people survive, that's a sequel.
So maybe they just wanted to go darker and just kill off a lot of the characters.
And that's fine. But in that weird hug, I would have picked lesser known people to make. Because you already had, if you have 3 guys going all out with submachine guns on the dashboard of their transport, those are the guys that die. The 2 dudes on the boat are the guys that you know what I mean? Sure, like that's it's the guys sneaking out in a weird way that they never planned on. Those are the guys that end up surviving.
One of the things we don't get is, aside from the look that's kind of shown towards Pinkley, you don't get anybody dying in each other's arms. You don't have any like last rites or bleeding out. Tell my wife this.
Yeah,
which both make sense and also kind of leaves you wanting. You don't.
They weren't the marrying type.
Suppose not. Yeah. In fact, we don't have any information about that. Although I do think it's sweet, whether they ever were married or together or not, that on the night where they bring in the 8 female escorts of mysterious varying ages. Yeah. I can't say what me and Jake were describing them as before the podcast.
They were certainly legal. That was not the question. They definitely went the right way as far as if there was a direction to go. They went. There was no
ambiguity.
As careful as they could be. But what I thought was kind of funny about that was they what do? They put on music and dance. There's something kind of sweet about
On
that.
film. On film, that's...
Yeah,
yes.
but what's implied? What did y'all think of the opening? Which is just him going to the prison to watch that guy get hanged, and then it like goes into him like talking with the officers. But like that whole sequence where he just shows up at the prison, guy dies. Do you think that was necessary?
No, I think that was brilliant on the end of leadership. To say, you need to be invested. Like, we're about to drop this on your lap. No idea. So you need to see exactly what's going to happen to them if you refuse. I actually think the psychology of this movie is the best part of this movie.
No, that's
I hadn't considered that.
That's really keen because I hadn't either. And this was my first time watching. I didn't really know for sure. But I will say we could continue to delve into more scenes because there were plenty. Because as a reminder, y'all, it's 150 minutes. But I'd rather talk more about the movie in our superlatives. You ready to do superlatives, Bryan?
Let's do it.
Well, we're going to start. Bryan, we're going to have you answer first on all of these. Who is your MVP of Band of Brothers? Nope.
Oh, wait.
MVP of The Dirty Dozen?
Lee Marvin. I mean, like he Jedi mind tricks 12 guys who are basically ready for hard jail death to also death or better. So...
Yeah.
For
the betterment of the entire world, not just like
I do enjoy his character. I think it sets a precedent for that actually good officer. I think there's a trope, a lot of military of crappy officers. And I feel like he sets a standard for there are good officers out there. And I do think that's necessary.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot too, is it's almost too easy to have an unlikable officer. Jake, who's your MVP?
Frank Cassavetes, who plays Franco, and I think he's kind of the most realistic juxtaposition to Lee Marvin. And I guess I give him Best Supporting Actor, but he's my MVP for sure.
And I'm going to go with Lee Marvin as well. I think he was. I have it written as he is the MVP of the first half of the movie because I treat the second half of the movie as sort of a 2004 Pistons championship team where there's no all-star. It's just together they do it.
Bunch of role players.
It's Bryan, your Best Supporting Actor.
I got to go with Charles Bronson on this because I've never seen a guy do so much with less. Like he was like, as you said, there's a second half of the movie where Lee Marvin is not the person in charge. It is Charles Bronson. He has had the least number of lines and the most amount of impact.
Yeah, he does kind of come into his own as suddenly way more badass when he just starts murking people with the suppressed pistol. And he just like sets it down too.
Oh,
he kills the two radio operators and just sets it down and walks out. He's doing the German. He's speaking the German. He's calm as a cucumber. Yeah, he comes into a totally different character.
And the thing in my head that happened when he sets that pistol down, he's like, that's the line that pops into my head. The normal like this is what happens at 2000 plus cinema. Like he sets down the silenced pistol and says, that did its work. I'm out.
I didn't have a place to add this in, but I guess I'll use this now with Bronson. It's just an odd fact that my Opa does look a lot like Charles Bronson, but also sounds a lot like Charles Bronson as a non-native English speaker as a boy who then began to speak English. Same with Charles Bronson, whose name is Lithuanian in descent. He grew up in Pennsylvania not speaking English, so his like accent is like really similar to how my Opa sounds, which is something that's very, very tough for me to separate. I didn't give him Best Supporting, actually. Mine is going to be Telly Savalas as Maggot. I thought he made the most of his like screen time, especially he gets a lot of face time. And the thing about him being like of the unredeemable, like he's the unredeemable, keeping him specifically away from the women when they come on. The moment I was describing earlier where my mouth was open and I was just like, what is going to happen here is when the woman's calling out for Wolfgang, and he is
Sprechen.
He's got the knife out, like he is the like he doesn't have the role of loose cannon or wild card. He just is that. And so I thought that was really fun to watch as he blows the cover off the whole mission.
Well, let me ask you this question. So right now you have people incidentally anti-authority for the whole thing. And then you have one guy who is uber religious but his downfall is the fact that he's crazy in that note to ruin everything.
Crazy is an odd word to use. For me, I would say that if you are super religious, you are incredibly pro-authority, just not the authority of this world. It's the authority of, the world everlasting. He believes, and you may get this from screen time, you may just think of him as the character, but he believes that even diverting the 12 men away from the punishment they were given to some other mission is somehow like a blasphemy against God, and you are all sinners by not taking this. He doesn't believe what he did was wrong. He believes what he did was he was acting as the vessel of God. So, like, crazy if you are that devoted to something unprovable, unwitnessable, the whole definition of faith. I would say, like, I don't know if crazy is the right word, but being that, like, his utter devotion towards that, is it the devotion that turns him into the thing that makes the mission go off the rails? Or is it, oh no, he just cannot stop himself around it?
Is it on purpose that they made the zealot the downfall of the mission while everyone else is having their normal aspects?
I don't know. I kind of think they just wanted to have the one Judas in the group, right? They just had to make somebody the bad guy, and I kind of think they just kind of hand wave it with the religious thing. He's like a rapist too, probably. I think that's hinted at. And I think they just wanted a crazy character. I don't know why it needed to be him to, like, make the plan go wrong. I don't know why they couldn't have just been, like, caught by a German guard or something else go wrong. Because it just seems strange that he's suddenly going to, in the middle of the plan, just start shooting his friends. I don't know.
Well, I do think that they needed to make the psychologist right. Like,
okay.
His proposition of saying, you're playing with fire here. Like, I think you have a point where Reisman has done the right thing, and he's turned a bunch of guys who have varying antisocial issues to the right. But
you can't there's some people. There's always one.
There's got to be a percentile that's beyond control, and that's where
I think your explanation became like whole and accurate to me with what you just said. Like, gosh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan, who's your hidden gem in this movie? Or what is your hidden gem?
I actually went Donald Sutherland. I don't remember seeing him in this, reaching way back, because I saw this as a kid. I feel like this intro.
Yeah, and it's cool when an actor has like a late stage, like such a late stage acting career that's what you know him for more than like early. I would say that's the case with him. And there's some other actors out there as well. What about your hidden gem, Jake?
If I have to pick one, I like the chateau. I like that I like the scene. I like the setting. It's like this beautiful building. It reminds me of like some other stuff that's happened in World War II. Have you heard of like the battle at Castle Turn? There was like a weird battle where like Wehrmacht soldiers, German or American soldiers all fought like SS soldiers to like free these French celebrities. It happened at like the end of the war. It's like the movie kind of reminds me of that. It's the chateau where all these like German officers are staying.
I believe these officers are also from something I read online.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought the head guy was SS because he's got the all black, the head German officer there. They're bad guys, but even the ventilation shafts where they have to like pull them off, struggle to get them off. I liked all of it. The tunnels, they've got the spot. I don't know. The setting to me is very cool.
This didn't make my change one thing on the rewatch, and I'm really focused on. It's the constant rejuvenation of guard shack.
Yeah, they cannot clear that shack. There's a
it looks like a 4x4 piece, and it's exactly like World at War for Call of Duty.
Yeah,
it's just like someone respawns there every 5 or 6 minutes.
Well, like, what's their weapons free? It's like they each have their own banana bunch of grenades. Like you toss one in there, but no, they keep coming.
Yeah, so yeah. I just like I didn't realize it until I watched it for this movie, and I was like, all right, I specifically took like 5 minutes to watch it. I was like, there's the one guy that comes out. Second guy comes out. Third guy lit a cigarette creepily on this dude's other cigarette.
Sexily.
Donald Sutherland cigarette. Like that was weird. That's a weird thing for a Nazi to do. It's a weird thing for a Nazi to do. Like, let's kiss cigarettes. Then he goes around this. the corner or whatever. Then another guy comes out, and I'm like, how big is this shack? Sure, there could be but how big is this shack? Like, come on.
But also, once they're all getting shot, coming out one by one, I think the second guy sees the first guy get shot as he takes 2 steps out and goes, no, not this way. Let's go the other way, boys. Yeah.
Out. Yeah. So I don't know. The guard shack was definitely the runner-up for my change one thing.
Is that your hidden gem? We're doing change one thing? Or?
No. He just wanted.
No, I'm saying that's my runner-up for my change.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, I have 2 hidden gems. I love to break the rules and give multiple answers. The first one is Ernest Borgnine, who's not quite hidden. I just think he's a treasure. And when you see him, he definitely also has the sort of like, oh, I see you're kind of defying the rules, you rascals. I like that a lot. But then I think this is the one that is maybe more hidden and more special to me. Is the very first orchestral hit of the movie is a tone-adjusted Star Spangled Banner, only it sounds extremely ominous. And so, listeners, when you start the movie, you're going to hear the Star Spangled Banner played out of tune on purpose. Very cool. Bryan, who is your recast for this movie?
I'd love to see Mike as the sergeant.
Like, who ends up coming along with on the mission?
Yeah. So the reason I say that is I don't feel like you can get a reasonable reaction from an American sergeant under that auspice. I think it has to be like an off base kind of piece.
Yeah.
Like, if you have an MP Corps policing their own, but they're going to eventually agree with them, give it why would it be American? Like, they're literally training to do a parachute drop pre-D-Day. Have them be British.
Makes sense.
Michael Caine.
No kickback here. Jake, who's your recast?
Samson Posey is supposed to be Native American.
That's right.
And that guy looks like Henry Cavill.
He looks like if you picked up Superman.
You gotta double pump the fist, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's the easiest answer for me. I'm so glad you didn't take it, honestly, because I thought that one was just staring brightly.
Yeah.
I've never seen a guy that big, though.
That's a big guy.
Back then, too.
Yes.
A large gentleman.
Well, I think maybe the interesting thing about that is, well, there's 2 things. Is that the Filthy 13 shaved their hair into mohawks, and they put war paint on, things I absolutely adore about our First Nation people. But on top of that, the comic book character, whether it's early DC or whoever, it's Apache Chief. The thing. There was a while there we really didn't know anything about, collectively, we didn't know anything about Native American people. So I don't know, are they big? Are they just big?
Yeah, and they're just bigger.
And so, it's Mortal Kombat or one of these fighting games from the 90s was like, all right, well, let's have a Native American guy, call him T-Hawk. What is he? He's big. And then one of these
and wears a feather dress and is pretty much naked other than that.
And then one of the earliest superheroes of Native American origin was a guy named Apache Chief. You know what he could do? He could say a couple of Native American words and grow to be the size of a skyscraper. He was just big.
Excellent.
So it made sense to them, I guess. Listen, y'all, I don't watch a lot of 1960s movies. I don't know if I'm surprising any of you out there. It's hard for me to do a real accurate recast. But I went with Dr. Kinder, who's played by Ralph Meeker. I replaced him with Gregory Peck. Seems like you put glasses on him, and he seems like a learned man. So that's my recast there. Bryan, what's your best shot of this movie?
I'm going to go with Jim Brown's grenades. I love the...
Yeah.
Going straight at it. I felt like that was a piece meant for film.
That's cool.
The straight off.
Yeah. That's an interesting choice. Jake, what's yours?
Mine is going to also be the best scene because I can't separate the 2. But it's before they jump out of the plane and they're repeating the plan and the mood's changed. The mood's totally changed. They've gotten very somber, very serious. And they know what they have to do. And I think that's the coolest, most badass moment to me in the whole movie is that moment right there.
I think if we had a category that was just most supreme badass, that would probably be it.
Yes.
The only thing I'll say about that is this isn't an inconsistency that took away from the movie, but numbering all the steps of the plan seemed like it made a lot of sense, and I loved how they rhymed it. Mm-hmm. But if they're gonna number 100%. That, They also number themselves and refer to themselves as their numbers to other officers when they're like trying to keep their identity hidden. I think it would have been cool to go like Reservoir Dog style and have them be colors or maybe state names, like I'm Louisiana, I'm Texas, I'm Nebraska.
Yeah.
Because there is one moment, and I'm not going to say like it confused me, but it was in the middle of the movie where they are going over the plan. They're like, and I think he says something like number 2. And I'm thinking that the major is talking to the person called number 2.
He's asking for number 2 to step.
But he's asking for number 2 to step, and I'm thinking, well, hold on, why are we doing both things here? I thought that would have been cool. Not necessary. It's a very cool shot and scene. My shot is when the camera is coming over the hill to see the chateau, all lit up at night. Very, very cool, stunning to me. I bet Russell would love to talk about the architecture, but he's not on this show. So let's go over to...
He's not here. He's not here.
He's not
here
let's,
to talk
let's just
about
scoot over to our best scene. Brian, what's the best scene?
Actually, I wanted to say one more thing on this.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is up prolific. I remember watching them talk about the plan when he's taking the pool for each place.
Yeah.
The only people actually named while he's taking the pool cue who survived.
Oh, that's interesting.
Huh.
I can't be 100%.
The first person who dies
literally
is mayonnaise.
Literally, I can't back this up. This is something that after you said your last piece, I was like,
Yeah.
So,
Maybe. Just a little bit of...
I think the only people named, because they talk about Bronson's character by name, he's the only person they don't number.
It's also just so easy to call him Bronson instead of Vladislav.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But they say
Joseph.
Vladislav. Like, I'm just saying, like, the people they name, not number, are the ones that live.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, anyway.
So we already know what Jake's best scene is, so what is yours, Brian?
My best scene is the taking of Red Team headquarters. I love that. Like, dude, give me all of the build up to this thing. Like, their whole deal about, like, there's, like, Larry striking here, and it's like, it's fine, we're all gonna die anyway.
Wait a minute, somebody's actually hurt.
Yeah, dude, this is great. And the doctor's like, no. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, we're hijacking your stuff. This is
Like, we get
that
another
whole
instance
piece
of
is awesome.
an officer who's kind of looking at these guys in the same sort of like, oh, you guys are really doing it again. Whoever the observer is of the game.
Which is his friend, I think. He's like
Yeah.
the first officer that we see the major interact with, where he's like, oh, they're mad in there or something. But he's always one, well, there is a way you could.
Armbruster, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I think there's a level of... The general knows he has to keep a certain amount of decorum.
You're shown very early that he's willing to kind of listen to Major,
Exactly.
Major Reisman as well. He gives him he's got a point. And he looks over at the other guy giving the briefing. He's got a point. I think once again, he's also just a treasure on screen.
Yes.
Yes. Well, my best scene is when Jefferson and Maggot are upstairs in the chateau, when they're kind of creeping around. Because things have already gone wrong outside, but they don't really quite know it yet. And there's an amount of drama and intensity that I didn't expect from this movie. And then you have him break, which I thought was so fun. Sinners. Yeah.
Sinners.
And another thing, like, he tells that woman to scream, right?
1 out of 12 deserve... Like, that's really what that told me. It's like you had a bunch of guys in a variety of positions where maybe they shouldn't be in the army. The one that was there and shouldn't have been, and it was really important, they made sure that they said there's a 1/12th percentile.
Well, and the amount of pressure it puts on Jefferson to make the call. Do I have to shoot my teammate here to keep the mission going? And does he get rewarded with surviving? No, he doesn't. Well, let's go to our best wardrobe or our best makeup moment. Brian.
I mean, come on. Donald Sutherland, General, right?
That's pretty
We
good.
change absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Oh, he's supposed to be
We pull
incognito.
him out. I'm incognito.
The youngest looking one.
Yep.
We're gonna walk the lines.
Even with this sort of rubber face role of like being kind of young, maybe goofy kind of guy, when he frowns and he changes to the frames of looking serious, you see glimpses of what he becomes later in his acting career.
They pick him to do this, and that could be just a random throw of the dice. But dude, he's played some of the most insidious upper government officials after this, and you're just like, oh, well, dang.
There we go. What's yours, Jake? Best costume or makeup, perhaps?
Lee Marvin looks good in the uniform all the time. That's my best wardrobe right there.
And he's got a very specific look compared to all of the other, because most of what you see is kind of what you would expect to see. I think it's also really special and important that these particular military men cannot stand being undercover in the garb of the enemy. Yeah. And so immediately there's like a special move they do to get out of the pants that they're wearing. Yeah. And hey, I made sure to bring your cool jacket.
Yeah.
So here you go.
Yeah, that was strange a little bit, but
mine was kind of a silly one, which is the German comms officer that's downstairs just has incredible hair. That's all I'll say about that. All right, 2 left. Bryan, change one thing. I know you gave us your runner-up, but what's the thing you change about this movie?
The machine gun shooting in this movie is the equivalent of someone driving on film. It's like, I'm driving down a straight run, and your arms are like, dude, are you going down the San Francisco street that is absolutely insane? No, you're driving straight, so just 10 and 2. It's cool. And
yeah, they're driving like Toonces is the cat.
Oh my God. Every time they have a machine gun scene, it's like spray and pray to their heart's content, but they hit them.
You need to hit every wave in the ocean with this
They've got like 45 degrees of spray.
Yeah, it's a lot. What's your thing you would change?
Okay. It's going to be counter to what y'all... I know y'all like him, but I could do without Maggot. I don't think he really does a whole lot. I think it's just like another B plot point. I don't think you have to have like this weird bad guy. I get the idea of maybe one that's irredeemable, but just to betray them randomly, I thought was strange. And it's just, I guess he goes crazy. I could do without Maggot.
He was ready to do it earlier. He would have done it if he weren't on guard. Mm-hmm. I think that's the piece that works for it, is he saw that, like, hey, yeah. I need these guys to have a moment of what am I fighting for? So I'm going to get them drunk, get them screwed. Yeah. And I can't have this one nut job who is actually a nut job. Like, I'm not saying that any of them don't have problems. Yeah. But I do have one guy who is like, I'm going to find who their recruiter was and say, dude, why did this happen? But like, I feel like that was part of the brilliance of A to B to C piece on how these guys become an elite fighting force.
I think if you lose that particular layer of this, then I would want to use that time with the development of another onion layer, because I do really like that.
Which would be Franco. Franco's next up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or more Bronson.
Franco's next up.
More fun, I think, probably more fun to view than Maggot's role. The thing I would change is, and this is something I think that goes against what you guys would like, is I would lose the war games part completely. I think what that. You said about, like, in order for there to be a winner, there has to be a loser, or in order to be right, somebody has to be wrong. Now, I could replace that. If we want to somehow put the Colonel Breed, if we want to somehow have him come around and realize, oh, this does work, or like, all right, we did give you command and it's going to work out. I don't know. Maybe they save his life. Maybe he's in a situation that's life-threatening, and this ragtag group comes through and actually saves the day, as opposed to this training exercise.
That's going to be in Dirty Dozen, too.
That's going to be in Dirty Dozen, too, right. Well, speaking of sequels, I mean, literally, and I know it doesn't sound like there's much of a connection here, but what I thought about was in Mighty Ducks 2, when
this connection.
Go ahead. Connection is,
Quack.
Okay. Do you know what ice hockey tournament they're playing in? It's not the Olympics. It's the Junior Goodwill Games. It's something that matters to no one. And for me...
And Hendricks Hockey is promoting it.
And Hendricks Hockey is behind the whole thing. Now, essentially what I'm getting at is, to me, it didn't hold up to the rest of, like, the weight of the movie. I think it showed us some cool improvisation things, and it showed us, like, oh, they're willing to break the rules. They say it a lot. Who's going to stop us? I love that mentality from Condemned Men. I think that's very cool. And they break the game, which is fun. I just kind of, maybe it lingered too long.
They did commit a war crime dressing in the Nazi uniforms.
There we go.
That is 100% a war crime, I'm pretty sure.
You cannot do that. So yeah, that's just mine. And so now, quotable movie. What's the best quote for you, Bryan?
I actually like the, where are you from? I look, there's nothing prolific about that quote, but dude, it
works.
Dude, no, it was the best because not only did it piss off his son, like ad-lib the whole.
Yeah, it really works in that scene. Jake, you have a favorite quote?
I can't remember perfectly how it goes, but Major Reisman says something along the lines of, "They hate me now, but they haven't met the Krauts yet."
Yeah.
I like that line a lot.
Oh, that's also awesome.
Well, and that actually brings it up into my quote, which is he is doing his one-on-one with Jefferson. When Jefferson responds, "That's your war, man, not mine. You don't like the Krauts, Major. You fight them. Me, I pick my own enemies." I thought that was so stone cold.
Yep.
Because I think at that point you're kind of like, oh, this is one of the guys that's like, oh, one of the good ones. Like, right? But like the idea that he's got this own Bible to how he lives his own life. Very, very cool to me. All right, we have one final thing to do, which is to rate this movie, which is out of 5 stars. We do half-star increments here if you're so inclined. But Bryan, rate this movie.
I gave it 3. I know I get a lot of flack often on 3-star reviews. I watched this movie fairly. I really enjoyed this, but there is a piece of, I don't want to say older cinema, where overacting was applauded, and it does bother to it. And I can't overlook it like in a way where I'm like, it's just a period piece. Like it's not a thing I can just flake out on. So there's a lot of this. It's rough. It is rough.
You know what? I would agree. We mentioned it earlier that this movie gets a lot of passes. We're not sure if they deserve them, but like the passes you make are like you kind of are used to it, considering it's over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Jake, what are you going to rate this movie?
Ooh, I suggested this movie. Rewatching it, I think it doesn't hold up for me. It's probably 2 stars. There's some stuff that's really cool, but the pacing takes too long. It's overacted, like you said. And I think that's just like 2 stars right out the gate. Just 2.5 hours is too long. And then, it's over dramatized at points where people are getting shot and whatnot. It's got fun moments, but I was never really hooked. But it also might just be because I've seen the movie before. Maybe if I had done this on a first watch, I would have found it more entertaining.
We have discussed that before.
Interesting.
But I think...
No, this is great.
I kind of watched it, and it didn't hold up in my head the way I thought it would.
Okay.
So, I guess I'm a 2.
For me, we're kind of sticking in and I'm the highest 0.5 that there is with the story and with the team building coming together. I had mentioned how like is some negative, but I kind of like how Major gets the thing that he wants to happen. Because this was my first time, I got to see some things that like I could not have expected or did not know exactly how together, which is why it was sort of a treat for me to see some of these things. It's unfair to say that you're immediately going to lose some ranking with me if it's long. Man, I like a tight 90 minutes, and this is a long movie, and I think it does need to be the length that it is. Just not all of it's great. Some of it is just poor. I don't really think that that relationship between Colonel Breen, was it?
Breed.
Like that lost on me. I think that there's sometimes where like the last of a war movie, like the culmination can not as great as lead up. We have that here, but it was fun. And I had written that I wasn't grading this movie based on its cultural impact on Hollywood filmmaking for decades and decades after, because we clearly see its influence on all types of things. But it was something about watching this for the first time and realizing just how threads came from this kind of story arc of put the crew together and make it work. And it was fun. But gosh, we really did talk about a lot of it just didn't really work for us throughout this. So 3.5 is our highest. But that's enough about our Dirty Dozen. Let's see what we can select for next time.
Band of Brothers?
Band of Brothers.
It's going to be on loop.
Done.
You ready, Bryan?
Yes.
You know what I want to wash down a generational wartime suicide mission with?
Oh, what? Good sir.
Disney animation.
Yay!
Yeah, so I've got 3 Disney movies for you, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about them. You choose. We can do The Little Mermaid from 1989. A mermaid princess makes a Faustian bargain in an attempt to become human and win a prince's love. We could do The Princess and the Frog from 2009. Crazy, it's 13 years ago. A waitress, desperate to fulfill a restaurant owner, is set on a journey to turn a frog prince back into a human being, but she has to face the same problem after she kisses him. And then also Tangled from 2010. The magically long-haired Rapunzel has spent her entire life in a tower, but now that a runaway thief has stumbled upon her, she's about to discover the world for the first time and who she really is. Bryan, what should we pick for next week?
I'm feeling fairly froggy on this.
Well, then leap!
Gotta get that Princess and the Frog.
We're going to do Princess and the Frog, and I want to thank Jake Pierce for coming on again.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
It's fun.
Cheers, man.
It's
Sorry
fun.
if I rambled too much.
Oh, you're talking to the Rambler. It's all good.
I am keeping everything in. Thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. Producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. We invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. Any contribution is much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening, be good to each other, and watch more movies. Bryan?
You have to set an example even in the face of stupidity. Everybody who reads comic book knows that Kirby Silver Surfer is the only true Silver Surfer. Now, am I right or wrong?